Offense wins games, defense wins championships, and for Oklahoma, defense might be the reason why Bent Venables keeps his job in 2026. But he goes into the offseason, starts scouring the transfer portal, and he just landed himself an enforcer in former Oklahoma State do-it-all defender Kendal Daniels. Let's break down the move. Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson, and today we grade as the Poke leaves Stillwater and heads to Norman. Real quickly, make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification, and subscribe to the channel because we talk college football every single day. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the socials. Link is in the description. Follow Dave at Mock 10 Sports, me and Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at RHOBACK. Go to RHOBACK.com and use the promo code SECU at sign up for 20% off your first purchase. It's a new year. It's a new you. You need a new wardrobe. Why not get a wardrobe with the RHOBACK fleece, pullover, hoodie, pair of joggers, pair of shorts for that matter? RHOBACK.com, promo code SECU for 20% off with your first purchase. Kendal Daniels, 1 more year of eligibility, 2 years of starting experience. Dave, it still feels really weird to say that an Oklahoma State player is crossing enemy lines despite the fact they don't play in the same conference. But the good news is, you get to work with Bent Venables. Regardless of how you feel about the offense last year, or regardless of how you feel about the situation that's going on in Norman, this man eats, lives, and breathes defensive formations. Last season, he got the exceptional play out of his front seven. He's got to get some replacements in there. You're getting a proven starter. I think on paper, this is a really smart move for a team that needs to get back to its basics if it wants to keep the same coaching staff going into 2026.
No, I agree with you, Cole. I remember when I was in that area recruiting, him coming out of Beggs High School. So I remember he was a long-term kid for a while. You always knew, but you knew he was going to stay in the state. Obviously, went to Oklahoma State. You're right. Wild kind of. When I was doing the research today, going back watching some more film, it does hit you sometimes. Like, he went over the Bedlam rivalry, But even though they don't play, but it's still interesting. I think it is a good take because he kind of fits that cheetah role, what they like a lot. He feels real comfortable around the box, coming and run support, covering a tight end. I think he takes over that cheetah role well in this Bent Venables defense that still needs a coordinator, but I think he fits in kind of to where Deshaun McCullough was this year from going back, looking at the depth chart where he may be able to fit in. I like this take. I'm with you. We'll get to the grade later on in the segment. But no, I mean, if I'm an Oklahoma fan, this is as good as we can get when we're going to have to plug some holes in the secondary.
Former number 1 player in the state of Oklahoma, initially signed with Texas A&M coming out of high school, was released from his national letter of intent, went to the likes of the Pokes, moved from safety to linebacker this past offseason. He finished in 2024 with 64 tackles, 10.5 tackles for losses, 5.5 sacks, 7 pass deflections. The thing that I like about this, Dave, is that you brought up Deshaun McCullough. He's out of there. He's no longer in Norman. You also are going to lose some players like Danny Stutzman, like Billy Bowman. You need veteran talent. You need guys who have proven playing experience. And someone like Daniels, who at least you can say he does a little of everything. He's pretty good as a blitzer. He can play in coverage if we need to throw him out there. He can play the run. He can be a surefire tackler. He is not afraid to get physical at the line of scrimmage. He won't get overworked by offensive tackles. He won't be able to be beaten by tight ends. He'll do a little bit of what we want in all these different facets. That's a good start. And then the other way that I look at this, if I'm Kendal Daniels, is I'm working with Bent Venables. Venables is the master of getting the best out of players to put in the right positions. Remember when he was at Clemson, there was a guy by the name of Isaiah Simmons. Simmons was just everywhere. He played linebacker. He played safety. He played a little bit of cornerback. He lined up in the nickel. They lined him at defensive end a few times. And his NFL career didn't turn out the same way, but he was an All-American, do-it-all defensive player. And that's kind of what you're getting in a Walmart, Kmart brand version with Kendal Daniels, is somebody that you're just going to say, we think that you're really good on the edge. We think you're really good at the middle. We think that you can add value in coverage. We think that you can play in zone a lot. We think that we can drop you back a little bit. We want you to just play with force and intimidation and not worry about anything else. You're in a really, really, really good spot going into next season. We'll figure out the role specifically for you when we get down the line.
No, I agree with you because I remember when Bent Venables went and got Isaiah Simmons with the Kansas City connection from that perspective there. But you're right, he fit that perfect rover spot for some of those dominant Clemson defenses. I think that's what they would like to see, and they're probably going to need Kendal Daniels to step up this year in a season that's going to have to be a must-have for Bent Venables. Again, let's get the coordinator in there. Let's see the fit. But I think we all know this is still going to be, for the most part, the Bent Venables defense, from what we all have learned from knowing him back when he was a coordinator under Bob Stoops, as Sooner fans know, from his days back with Dabo. in Clemson. But the word that comes to my mind here that you gotta like for the take without just being too long-winded would be just versatility. It gives you a lot of versatility in your secondaries, like you mentioned, Barry. You lose some guys, so that gives you some depth. Like if someone else goes down, hey, Kendal Daniels has played enough football at the highest level here in the Big 12, now in the SEC, where it's like, hey, we can maybe go slide him in. He's experienced. He's seen this before. Like he can adjust. He can get us all lined up on the back end. So I think versatility is that word that comes to mind. And dude, I mean, you got to love versatility. I mean, where you can bring consistent value across the board will be key, especially in the back end where depth is limited now. The depth's limited on the back with when you're playing 5 to 6 DBs as regularly as most defenses do now.
You're adding a former freshman All-American, a former Big 12 Defensive Freshman of the Year in 3 seasons with the Pokes. He had over 240 tackles, 7.5 sacks, 13 pass deflections, 5 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. Again, it's really hard not to like the fit because of now you have that open cheetah role. But the other thing that's really important here, Dave, is it's hard not to like the fact that you're getting depth out of a kid. Whether or not he is a full-time starter, whether or not he is a rotational player, you're adding in depth to a defense to work with Bent Venables, when really, I think a lot of people are forgetting the thing that makes Sooner fans a little frustrated is they had such a good defense for most of the season last year. A lot of those players will not be back in 2025. But let's go ahead and grade the move. Elite, all league, winnable plus, winnable minus. Jag, I'll let you break this down really quickly. This is a really interesting one because I'm not sure he's a full-time starter. But again, with all of the defensive necessary needs this offseason out in Norman, I feel like that you may be overgrading him just a little bit.
Yeah, all right, getting to it quickly. Again, this is a Georgia Dan Lanning kind of grading scale here. This is what they use for their rosters at Oregon and Georgia. They grade their own rosters off this, and they use it in their high school recruiting too. So just so background knowledge for people who haven't listened to one of our grading scale segments for these portal takes. But elite all league, I'm putting them in the kind of the same. You're not going to see myself, Cole, or even most coaches really grade a lot of these guys. That's the obvious no-brainers where I say it all the time, like Coach Mark Rick used to always say, my wife could tell you this guy's good. From that perspective, take that as you may. Most of your roster, if you're a championship contending team, is going to be in this winnable plus category. You want to be hitting on 50, 70% of these guys on your roster. When you're grading your roster, hey, we got a lot of winnable plus guys. We're winning because of these guys. Winnable minus, don't be discouraged with the minus. It's just you can win with, not because. You're going to surround him with some other good players. We see it all the time at the offensive line spot, defensive line spot, receiver spot, potentially even in the secondary here. But I think for our guy Kendal Daniels here, I'm going to go winnable minus, and maybe I'm a little down on my own grade here a little bit. I want to give him the winnable plus, but I think again it is going to be dependent who the coordinator is. I know Bent Venables is the main technician here. I get that, but I also want to know how he's going to fit into some tweaks with whoever the new coordinator is. Also, like they're going to surround him with some other guys on the back end. I think depth will be key. How deep will they be on the back end? I think we're all fired up about that depth this year. We'll see how it translates into 2025. But I think versatility, like I mentioned earlier, that is the key word there. I think it's a very good take. It's a needed take. Fits into that cheetah role perfectly. I'm going to go winnable minus, but the guy's going to be at his best when he's surrounded by some other guys as of this moment.
I will go winnable minus as well, and the only reason why is just because I want to see that translation from the Big 12 to the SEC. That's for starters, and the other thing that's really important, I want to know if he's going to be a guy that gets 70% of reps per game, if he's a guy that gets 45% of reps per game. What's really interesting, and the way that I view this, Dave, is that, do you remember Trey Moore when he came on over to Texas from UTSA? He was the All-AAC Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
And it took a while for him to kind of get his feet underneath him in the big game country out in Austin. But once he did, there was a designed role for him. Get to the quarterback. Don't waste a lot of time trying to play the run. Just put an emphasis on going full pedal to the metal. Maybe that's what we're getting with Kendal Daniels. I think this could be a dude that comes on in and is a 8.5 sack. Maybe we talk about 12 tackles for losses type of guy. This is a guy that maybe gets a couple of forced fumbles. This is a guy that maybe gets an interception because they play him out in coverage on a couple plays. And we're just going to scheme him up to be able to be our Rover-esque dude that we feel like can just be a plug and play. And if that's what I'm getting out of him, I call that a win. I call that a massive win for a guy in Bent Venables that needs to get the best version of the defense out there to show that things are still trending in the right direction in Norman. That doesn't mean I think that he is safe from being fired. That does not mean I believe that just adding in a couple of defensive players and having a solid unit once again is enough to get you off the hot seat. But there is enough to like about Kendal Daniels, what he has provided, the way that he has played, the experience he comes with. I mean, Mike Gundy talked about him saying that he was just a joy to watch in coverage. He was a joy to watch make the transition. There's a lot of things they really like about him. It takes some repetition for him to get his feet underneath him. If he does that, I think he could be a really solid contributor. There's going to be more names added in, I think, to Oklahoma's defense before the end of the season. They have Kip Lewis at linebacker. Now they get themselves another veteran. I think that that's at least a good start going into 2025. Doesn't mean that it's the only piece you need, but it's a good start. Winnable minus can work his way up to winnable plus.
Yeah, and you got R. Mason Thomas announced the DN said he was coming back as well. So like you said, you got some pieces coming back on a defense that was good this year, senior-led team. It's just you're going to have to plug some holes. I'm with you. I mean, I don't really like giving the winnable minus. It could be in the plus, but I think till we see the position, the coordinator position, and some other pieces, as you mentioned, Bear, who they'll add, I think that'll ultimately determine if this goes up or down.
Before, depending on when you watch this, because there is rumors and speculation that somebody else is joining with a guy like Daniels, I don't think this is the last poke we will see cross enemy lines and join the SEC in 2025. I don't think that we're there just yet. Also, Robert Spears Jennings is back. You have Kip Lewis. You already mentioned Thomas. It's still a very good unit, one that could still be improved upon, but one that you're not sitting there and saying, we are got to trust our offense to get the job done. But let us know in the comment section down below, what do you think of Kendal Daniels leaving Stillwater and headed to Norman in 2025? Like, review, hit subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on all the socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow Dave at Mach 10 Sports, me at Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. For Dave Shumate, I'm Cole Thompson. Boomer! You got a cheetah. He's flying to a quarterback near you in the future. Peace.